welcome to Flowcast, a podcast by Flowout, where we chat with successful entrepreneurs, freelancers, and other amazing professionals that are crushing it in their game. We are Flo and Peter, and we'll be your host on this audio journey. In this week's episode, we'll talk with Alexander Vilinskyy, Ukrainian inventor, designer, and polymath. We'll get to know Alexander and dive deep into the understanding of his design process for some of the world's most recognized productivity tools. So without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the conversation.
Like Flo said in the intro, today we're here with one and only Alexander Vilinskyy. Alexander is a co-founder of Commit Club, a super designer at Deciped, and a product and design advisor at Cluey. Working in fast-paced environments and constantly raising the bar for customer experience, he's responsible for beautiful design, some of her favorite apps. Alexander, welcome to the show.
Hello, excited to be here.
Excited to have you here. So to kick it off, we just touched this briefly. You moved to London like 1 year ago, but let's step a bit more in the past. And can you tell us your journey? Like, how did it all start? Like, how did you fall in love with design?
Well, it was very vibrant times in 2008 or something, I think. It was, I was in school and we were discussing with my friend how many new startups are rising in US. And we just heard this word of startup and we didn't know what did it mean. So we just started a website about like iPhones and Nintendos and games. And we were doing very early some game reviews and stuff like that. But already then I felt like this part of thinking about the end reader, thinking about end consumer is very important part in in business building, in creating, in design. But I didn't know the word design. I thought design it's more like about picking the colors in the website constructor or something to make it look better. But already then I was understanding that people would consume content only if it will be interesting, only if it will be engaging, only if all the conditions will be correct for them to consume that content. So I focused things then on building this experience in different roles. So I was a marketing expert once. I was selling some ads on the Facebook when I was in school. Then I was trying to design some early startups for mobile apps. And something that I immediately noticed is that no one called themselves mobile product designer that time. So I just chose like this mobile direction in 2011 or something. And it was such unique expertise. I was still small, but I felt like people, like companies are ready to buy from like specialists. And they were paying a lot of money just for this unique expertise in mobile. So I knew the phones, I knew the guidelines, I knew the best practices. I downloaded every app possible on the App Store. So like it was like, when I started my career, I just downloaded everything. Like I tested millions of apps. And it just helped me to get on the market quicker. And it was a very nice time of understanding what does it mean to design. Yeah, I think it's it.
And did you learn all these like by yourself, or did you also go to university for design?
No, like I'm only grateful for people that were my managers or people that were close to me at that time, because they gave me harsh feedback sometimes, but that feedback was really inspiring to move forward and to learn new stuff. Everything was online. A lot of stuff, like I think it's true even now, that you cannot teach someone to do great design or to do great business. You always have to try, and then that will be your kind of biggest challenge, biggest university, biggest exam of how it actually works in the real world. So no matter, like I was trying to mentor someone, I've had educational courses and so on. I mean, when I was teaching someone, and still my conclusion after all these years is the only thing that you can do is just try something. It's like the best thing that would make you as close as possible to the kind of knowledge and exposed to real challenges, how it becomes. So no matter how much I've tried to learn, like to find good educational material or create it myself, I always find that no, real experience is more engaging. It's like playing in real life. It's not like playing a game, and it's just more fun and more risky to do it in real life.
Yeah, definitely agree. I'm a big advocate in that. I believe that, especially in the world we live right now, you can learn anything you want by yourself. Just if you have internet, then like just the sky is the limit. And yeah, learn by experience, just trial and error, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, you also said that you were once a marketing expert. Was that your real job before like hopping in design full time?
It was a freelance gig, I would say, because back then I also had some, like I just had friends who wanted to launch Facebook ads. They didn't trust anyone, so they trusted the only guy who was good with computers. So I just opened up the Facebook advertisement account and figured it out in one evening and started selling ads and making a margin from it. So it was more like school way of, basically capitalizing the missing knowledge of adults who don't know how to make quick kind of learnings in the new kind of in the new sphere, in the new industry. I was just capitalizing on that because I was good on computers. It actually inspired me to do design in some way, like product design, because when I was working as a marketing expert, I don't know, Facebook ad seller, what I hated about this is that I had to sell something that I haven't designed. And I always felt, oh, if you could just improve the product a little bit, it would be so much easier to sell it. Like the marketing will become easier. So at that point, I started because I was drawing some marketing materials, banners, so I knew Photoshop. So I started drawing some UI design and some products like from scratch. And it has started my career. So basically, I was solving my marketing problem. So I started doing better products.
Yeah, it sounds like you're not only working creative space, but you were always also finding like some creative ways how to like capitalize on already existing stuff and like how to improve products all the time. Do you think that's also like this curiosity that drives you and your creative work could be your unique skill that has helped you reach the point you are today?
I usually think it's not creativity, it's greediness. Like I'm very greedy and lazy. And so ideally, I would not do any work and get the money. So I think this kind of desire and very transparent honesty with myself that, hey, I want to make money. And every time I see an opportunity to make it, I will try to make it in ethical ways possible, because it's also one of the values that I want to have in my life, is something that drove me all the time. So usually I'm really jumping into too many projects, too many startups, too many opportunities that are offering me. And then I struggle with kind of saying no to all of them. My wife is not particularly a fan of this feature as well. So I'm trying to balance between the life and the amount of projects right now. And but I think saying yes to so many things was a good learning. Like I know it's not right, and all kind of business thinkers and successful CEOs say no, you will have to say no a lot of times to a lot of things. I'm still saying yes, and I'm just thinking, okay, when this flame will damage me, then I will learn. But until I get some results and until I get some profit from it, okay, I have to play this game.
Yeah, this mantra of saying yes to everything really resonates with me. I'm trying to practice the same, and this podcast is also one of those things that I wasn't sure about, but look, here we are, and it's great to talk to you. What are we interested in this show is also picking the brains of our guests, and you already explained like what drives you. I want to get even a bit more technical about your work process. Like how do you approach the definition and then building an MVP?
Okay, MVP. So I think different products require different approach to do that. There are some products that enhance experience. There are some projects that revolutionize experience. There are some projects that are more on the consumer side or more on the creation side. I don't know, historically, I somehow always was connected to creation type of products where people have to write an email, create a PDF, create a text, write an essay or something like this. And something that I learned is that most of the advices on the internet of how to do user research is useless. They're just not applicable to a space where people have to make extra effort to their creativity and to apply themselves. Good example of that would be, for example, email clients. If you ask any regular designer on the internet, how would you user research email client? They would ask how people are using their kind of emails every day. They would try to make a diary status. They would try to make a prototype and give it to their hands and see how people would learn the interaction that you made, or so on and so on. But what I have found during my history of work is that if people don't have the full context of being present, how it is in their real life, they will just not produce you valuable or truthful insights. They might be valuable if you squeeze it a little bit harsher, but basically what I learned is that whenever you ask people to, for example, try to use this pattern in email client. Do you find it productive? Would you use it? How did you use it like in other clients in the past, and so on and so on? I feel like it's very different when you as a designer compose that email and show it to a person in some time of their life versus them receiving an email from their manager about their salary upgrade. If person really received this kind of email, they will go through the most horrible interface in the world, but they will get and read that email and will do all of the tasks. So it seems like in creational apps, there is always a kind of underlying motivation that it's harder to test, that people might have their own life, they might have the motivation far greater than the complexity of the interface, and they can break through more challenges, which means that you, at one point, you have more space to innovate and make some more radical changes to the interface. On the other hand, it's like more, it's harder to get the insights of what's possible. So I think when I was working on essay, writing and all on the long form writing for Grammarly as well, it's you can ask people to compose a text, but it will be radically different from the point when they will actually write again a letter to their manager, right? They will have different emotions, different expectations. They will be more careful, or vice versa. They will be more aggressive. They will have just different feelings. So something that I found is that building is sometimes more useful than testing. So in some projects, I really advise people, like, you don't need to test it right now. Like in terms of testing, like making prototypes and stuff, you will just not get the true insights. What you have to do is to build something small, minimal that solves the problem and see if people are really drawn to it, if people are using it, if not, and so on and so on. It's the same with emotional design, to be honest. Like some people consider emotional design to be post MVP, right? That after like you're building functionality first, and then you add some sprinkles on top of it, like confettis and so on and so on and so on. I think it also has some of the challenge here, because emotion should be ingrained from the start in the MVP. It should be like very small amount of emotion that really validates that it's needed to be there in some points. But it's also hard to validate, oh yeah, like people are retaining like, I don't know, $5 better if they're receiving this confetti award in the end in their email or something like this. So I think this is my biggest takeaway from the past couple of years, is that some products are not meant to be tested with classical user research methods. And it's better to build something and test it, especially if the capital allows it. In companies, for example, that raise some great seed investments or some Series A investments, sometimes building is more efficient because you get faster results, you get faster validation, and it's actually better for everyone. Even it's economically more feasible, despite people saying, oh no, you have to validate it before building it first. Well, if you validate and then build and then test and so on, it might take you 6 months versus 2 months to build it and see if it works or not.
Do you still have some like steps layout that you usually follow, or is it strictly like case to case, depending on the context and on the product and on the audience and so on?
This is a great question, because I've tried after each project, I feel like, oh, I have to productize my flow. I really have to productize my approach of doing things. I have to like I open Whimsical, I make this like flow where I first do these questions, then I do these questions, then the tree of decisions and so on and so on. But what I have found is that when I speak with founders and when I speak with investors and when I speak we work with each particular project, all of them are so unique to their own context that it would be a disrespect from my craft to approach it with some kind of system. Oh yeah, I was in these kind of interviews when someone was pitching me like their services, and they are asking questions that are already being answered or just irrelevant to this project, and they're just asking it because it's in the brief. So I feel like there is some kind of disrespect when you're asking unnecessary questions versus you are really preparing for this particular project and you are making a kind of bespoke care about the founders and founders projects, right? So I think I'm trying to make it as personalized as possible, even though I understand it's more expensive, it's more troublesome, it takes more mental energy. But I think if we really care about the craft, it's the only way to go.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. And to scope in a little, I want to move to the time when you were a lead designer for building tickets.ua. And during your stay there, you've managed to help increase the revenue by 40 times. That's incredible. Like, how did you approach like the strategy? Like, what was the strategy behind this?
Yes. So it's good to use relevant numbers in description on LinkedIn because it's you don't know the absolute numbers, right? But
Okay.
I would consider this a great win because we were pretty good. But the story of my hiring is that the mobile team didn't have mobile designer back then. So all they did, they just squished the web design into the mobile app and said, oh, hey, we're having a mobile team right now. It was like 2015 or something. So mobile was it was already on the rise, but it wasn't like widespread, a default device for ticket buying or some everyday activities. So how they were treating is like, oh, we need mobile app because our competitors have it, right? Not more than that. So when I came, I just made an analysis of what's happening in the app, where are the biggest drops in metrics what are the biggest problems we can see and fix cheaply. And I created a very kind of basic design system, which would just solve basic issues with calendar, with buttons, with input fields. I cut it down all of the optional fields, even if they were kind of standard for the industry. Some of the optional fields I was just pre-filling for the user. I've tried, I questioned every possible input, and I turned down the booking time from I think 6 minutes to 40 seconds or something like this. So it was just really process of I saw there is a potential there, but we needed to carve the diamond out of this, so out of all of the mess that was there. So I think something that was good is that the founders team thought about this as just, oh, the mobile is just it's more like a branding thing, right, in our company. But we was able to grow it as a serious sales channel into the company. So then several percent of the whole revenue of the company was going through the mobile apps, through the different mediums, just because we rolled out this new design system that helped to carve everything unnecessary from it. I think why I'm saying about 40 times increases because we didn't make any changes to marketing. We didn't make any changes to any other processes of how we just changed design. And that alone helped to build this kind of, it's very conversational kind of business, right? You have some people who are interested in buying tickets and they will either buy or not. So our goal was just to make to take care about them and to strip everything unnecessary from there and add as much as possible value throughout the process, more confidence throughout the process, remembering their choices, trying to like if they already bought something once, the next time they buy it, they need even less time to pre-fill everything because we're remembering and reminding stuff and so on and so on. So yeah, I think it was a very fun project because we had a lot of freedom because no one believed in mobile in some way. So we were trying risky stuff because like we felt like we have a say there, we have a word to like try to revolutionize it and make basically the best app on the market, which we did, and it resulted in this, and people were able to buy a lot of tickets through it. And so, yeah, so it was a fun project.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it sounds like so obvious to like put stuff like autofill once the user is already registered and all these similar assets that a mobile app can have. But you said that you like analyze the app before like going in and redesign it and before creating the design system. But how do you go about this? Do you like analyze competition apps, or do you talk with users? Like, what's your process like? Or what was your process like for this particular example?
So competition was even worse. So we didn't have anyone to really look after. And Ukrainian railways, for example, or like airlines are pretty standardized in the whole world, but railways have their own rules in each country. They always have some specifics. So once, like the most kind of, I don't know, skin in the game part was when I just came to the main train station in Kiev. And I just try to witness how people are buying tickets, how they're going, how they're validating it, what happens when they're sitting down to the train. I took several trips myself, and I was like, the best moment is when you see that people are kind of taking phone out and they're using your app to validate the ticket or something. So it was really cool to really stand in the freezing winter and notice how people are using your app, or what kind of problems they have, or when they frustrate, when some person don't understand them because they have this special type of ticket. Oh, there were so many edge cases there. But I think in that particular project, just using the best practices of the industry was already good enough. And to be fair, I think it's like for most of the projects, for most of the new startups, they would win if they would just accompany like all of the best practices from the internet. It's not so easy though. Like you have so many like points of context. Some of the like several influential stuff that I read by that time was Luke Wroblewski's work from Google. He was posting a lot of stuff on how you can optimize every field there. And based on his work and based on others' work, I was trying to make some principles of like minimizing the user's input. And I had this theory that I still haunting me in every project is actually people hate doing everything on mobile when it concerns the keyboard. Keyboard is just painful on mobile. It's like, it's really, you kind of can use it for some, I don't know, personal tasks. But if I ask you to do some like regular task with all of the power with these like A15X chips on mobile, the mobiles are increasingly powerful, but they're so like cumbersome. It's just painful to use and book and do any like serious money task there unless you have like just a few taps, right? So my goal was to minimize the keyboard usage and to replace every keyboard tab with something. So instead of typing name, you choose something from contacts. Instead of typing location, you choose something on the map, or just using geolocation. Or we could we were tweaking the results on the search bar. So the most relevant, we were kind of trying to predict what place you will fly to. And we were very good at it because we had the previous data. So we saw how really streamlined was the new booking flow process was. But again, it was very personalized approach. I wouldn't say that I would do the same stuff in other companies, and I probably never did.
Okay, yeah, I guess when you think about it, like I use the keyboard on my phone just for text messaging and maybe sometimes for notes, but yeah, now in 2022, almost 23, like all apps basically I think all apps basically follow the same principle, the same design principle. It's like when like one apps try to reinvent the wheel, it's like it's so hard to use.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and what do you think are some of the best qualities for a lead designer to have, especially in a startup world, when the goal is to be fast and iterate fast, and where it's not like unlimited supply of money to spend on design?
What are the best qualities? I think designers should be very like how I see it is like designers should be very unconfident in everyday work of what change they might apply to, but they have to be really confident speaking with the team and protecting the user and their designs in the end. So there is a big kind of misalignment here, right? That you are unconfident in your work, but you have to present it confidently. But that's how it actually like is if you really want to make a good kind of influence inside of organization. There are a lot of traits of like good designers, good professionals, but I think it's all the same for all professionals, right? They have to be mature, they have to like, I don't know, communicate well, they have to behave like adults, they have to have responsibility, they have to deliver on their promises and so on, so on. So I'm not even touching this. I think in terms of designers, it's very kind of important to be a little bit uncomfortable for the organization, because I feel like one of my mistakes was that I've tried to please so many people in my career to be like that most comfortable designer that is you're enjoying to work with. I was sometimes soft, and at times it just punished me with the bad user feedback. Well, that times when I was more bold and said like, no, we really need to take care, and I'm okay taking a cut from our, I don't know, from our commission here, or making hiding some things, or like changing a law or a policy, privacy policy or something. We really need to make a better user kind of experience for all people, because that's what ends in the matter. People will remember how the app feels. They will remember how the product feels, and they will want to return to the app that feels great to them. So I feel like if we're speaking about design, this like we have a little bit more subjective profession, if I may call it. Like in development world, it's more like if it works, it's fine, no matter how it works in some way. Or it doesn't work, and then you're just not releasing it, and that's me. In design world, it's like everything works, and who designs what's best? No one. So it's like founder or designer or the most like or the loudest person in the room or so on. So what probably every designer should learn is how to become that person in the room that everyone trusts, and everyone understand that whatever they say for a reason. It's not just because they want to say this, or just they're not some kind of serving person here to help developers make a better job. It's like a full product person inside of the team. And I even think like right now, the design and product should be in a way unified in terms of team structure. I don't think team structure, like classical team structure of like, oh, we have product person, marketing person, design person, and development person works anymore, because there are so many overlaps between marketing and product and design in such a weird way that I feel like we will see more combinations of them in the future, when design and marketing will be joined, or marketing and product, or product and design will be held by one person, and then they will speak with the whole team and organization in this way. I'm still thinking about this. It's work in progress, but I think there is definitely an opportunity there to open more of the designers' input into the team structure.
Yeah, I mean, we both work in marketing, and we already see this in our organization in Flow, that like marketing overlaps with design a lot. But I'm not so familiar with development since I don't have so much contact with our development team. But yeah, I definitely see these patterns also when I browse through Twitter and LinkedIn and other organizations. But I also feel like a lot of times, at least in the beginning of the startup journey, when everyone is a little bit lost, like founder thinks like the product will look one way, designer it will look a different way, and then developers see his own whole different way. How do you bridge all those three different visions as a lead designer to create like one cohesive vision that everyone will like?
Well, I think there is no ethical way. I think there is always a manipulation in this. But I don't mean it with bad attitude, but basically you want to change people's minds in some way, or just makes more compromises in their own vision, which is always like a negotiation tactics. Sometimes you can give from thinking, oh, I have to take more power from founder, for example, to make a better decisions and give it to developers or designers. Sometimes it's actually worse tactic. And so vice versa, you can give more powers to people and say, like, for example, one of my favorite techniques is saying like, no, everyone is a designer, and designer who has the design kind of name in their role position is just an interface between the product and the team in a way. So whatever you're saying, I'm trying to kind of blend it together and place it better to the product. I think it's kind of a challenge for every organization, but I think something that I'm trying to find a message or some punchline that would just be very approachable for listeners. I think there are several challenges when people are trying to do what you're saying, like connect the visions between the different conflicting parties. Something that people not do is they don't communicate enough about all of the reasons and about all of the thinkings. They don't like repeat it on every day, which I try to do. Like I try to at least once a week to talk with every part of the team or record some loom to the team and say like, okay, this is what we're doing and this is where we are heading. I know that I repeated it like 5 times last month, but I'm still kind of confirming that we're still moving into this direction, because sometimes people say, yeah, but you told this several months ago without like something changed and we're just unconfident about this or something like this. So what I think like designers should be doing is communicating more, like posting some kind of a I also have this practice of live workbook, like where, for example, one Notion page where I just post some concepts or some stuff that I work alongside the main tracks. It just helps team to understand the principles and experimentation and what's happening in your head. And they find more reasons to like not to be sold to, but more like pick up ideas from your brain. So ideally, people should you should not sell to your teammates, right? They should pick something from your ideas that you presented to kind of yourself and make it their ideas. Like ideally, they have to be like, it's all very old selling technique as well. So it's like, it's very, as I said, it's very unethical to say like, oh, how do you bridge the gap? Because you always want to make best out of your ideas, right? And it's very human bias. There is nothing wrong with this, right? I just feel like whenever you do it, you're always selling anyways. And it's the matter of your kind of ethical constraints about your communication with the team, about the trust, because sometimes you can be honest about these things as well. And it will not break anything, because if people are happy working on the ideas that they invented, it's perfect.
Yeah, at the end, it's all about persuasion, right?
But I mean, in the end, you also have to have some end goal, right? Sometimes people mistake what the end goal is. Some people think, oh, we're making a startup because we want to have fun. Some people are saying, whoa, we want to make a startup because it will make a lot of money for me. Some people say, oh, we're making startup because we want to change something in the modern world. These both three statements are valid. And this is the problem. There is nothing that is invalid about any of these statements. They all are true. The question is, how do you know, like, what is the outcome and what is the output? Because outcome is something that happens after all of the outputs that you've made. For example, I made so much efforts, but in the end, we became very kind of expensive startup and we got rich. Like getting rich, for example, is a perfect example of outcome, right? You cannot game it. You cannot like try to, I don't know, there is no like lever that you can push and it will make you wealthy or rich in some way. You can only do a lot of stuff that makes you more valuable, more marketable, launch more projects, more, I don't know, more efficient, build more teams, more influential. And then somehow in the end, it will start getting the results back, but you cannot control it. And the same thing is in the startup world, right? There are some things that you can control. For example, the quality of the product, the speed of the response, the communication inside of the team, the goal building, the investment plan, and so on and so on. But in the end, will the startup work or not? It's very like outcome-ish, like goal, right? You cannot game it in a way. You can do your best, but it might fail, right? So it means like I like to distinct that, and I like try to keep both of these separate in my communication with the team, for example.
Yeah, there are like just so many factors that influence if the startup will win or not. For example, like here we're based from Slovenia, and like one Slovenian founder basically launched Snapchat before Snapchat, and yeah, it was just like he did all the right things, just the wrong timing, and nothing came out of it.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Yeah, and as you said, that like so communication is so important, and to align with like with founders, developers, with the whole team to understand your idea, and like what you're trying to achieve with the design and what pains you're trying to solve. The same is with customers, right? The customers also want to feel listened. They want to like they want to be like they want to like feel special, if I can say that. And they like oftentimes the customers have a lot of ideas how you should improve the app or the product and like how to make it even better. Do you have any process like at what time do you implement those suggestions? What time do you just ignore it? And yeah.
I think my default response, and again, I'm very against many tips on the internet, but by default I usually ignore them all of the time, because like I try to note them down into the factors that impact the product. But I saw so many times when, for example, customer feedback killed some startups and no one noticed, like no one is talking about this a lot. You know, they talking, yeah, you need to listen to customer, but sometimes no, sometimes like customers feedback, if you're relying on it too much, can drive you into the just zone of feedback that of like serving this one customer instead of building a, I don't know, serious product or platform and so on. The good example is usually kind of agencies who are becoming very dependent on one big client that is paying a lot of money to them. And they're starting to really adapt to this one client and getting so dependent on them that it's getting hard to kind of avoid. Instead of paying a lot of money, and sometimes customers complain a lot. And this is like one way of we are assuming that they're a very loyal customer and that they will be with us. Sometimes not. Sometimes you can actually spoil product for other people that were silent and they were happy with the product because they didn't complain. Of course, like practically speaking, you just have to build this kind of constant flows of feedback from people about your product to the team. So everyone in the team knows the challenges of people, they know where people struggle, they know the metrics of those who for example, complain. But in the end, the decision should be made for the platform and for the product, and it will be the most user-centric decision in the end, even if it will ignore some of the users that complain. I think there is just sometimes really wrong understanding of why you have to listen to customers. It's not that you would directly change something. Like, as you said, like they want to feel listened, but it's not always the case that it will be fixed or will be changed to their direction, because in the end, that's not the goal. The goal is to serve as many people as possible and to help them as much as possible. That's how impact will be actually greater. So I think it's something that many kind of even product people in the industry don't understand, but this is key to build like really sustainable long-term products.
Yeah, talking about customers, I want to discuss a product that I'm a customer of and you're very familiar with, which is Grammarly. You're a lead product designer there for over 2 years. Can you tell us how you became the part of the Grammarly team and a bit about your journey with them? Yeah,
so I joined for the same reason, for the same very similar reason to like tickets. I was a mobile. I had a reputation back then of mobile specific designer. I worked on many popular mobile apps, and they wanted this mobile design expertise. They wanted to have someone who would have just mobile thinking about the industry, because I feel like it's not figured out even right now. Yeah, there's so many opportunities to change this. And in terms of communication, which Grammarly's main focus is, it's a very kind of mobile plays a critical role, because more and more communication happens on mobile in very different forms, in video, in audio, in short messages, in voice notes, in stickers, in memes, in whatever. Like there are so many mediums right now. And basically, I was invited as a person who would explore all of this and help deliver based on like Grammarly intelligence new features. Yeah.
Okay, I see. And just like a question about the work there, about the organization. How did you feel there? Was it like a fast-moving organization? What was the process like for designing new feature, new concepts?
It's a very, I joined in the beginning of the COVID, I think. And it was a very, like, of course, every organization was feeling very chaotic back then. But when I joined Grammarly, they were really straightforward about, okay, we know what we're doing. And I really like this. I like the boldness of it, but not a confidence in terms of like, oh, we know what to do. It's more like we are doing it. And no matter what kind of approaches or what products we have to launch it, we're going to improve the communication. And this focus on communication was really inspiring to me, because I joined because some years ago before Grammarly, I was always exploring like how chat messages can be more powerful, how can there be more dimensions to it, how to make more context. I was always, before I was working at Treadle, and I was working on, I was the only person on remote. I was working from Kiev and the whole team was working from Odessa. And I learned so many techniques about communication that, oh, you have to have a nice voice and a nice background so people would kind of hear you better, and like the communication would be better. I sent some digests to my managers in the morning of like each day or each week to influence how they see me. And I was honest about them, but I knew how important communication is. So when I joined Grammarly, my goal was to explore this part of the communication world and how it will change in the next couple of years. So there is a lot of research on the internet of what's happening and what are the challenges. And I was just excited to test and see what can we bring to the table as a company back then.
Do you think you had a unique approach or view of the situation, since like us, you're not a native English speaker, so it was basically a product that like in some circumstances would be valuable to you compared to maybe another designer who, you know, would not need this spell checker?
It's interesting question. I don't know, it's by chance or by luck or because I had something like this in my mind, but I was always a user of products I was designing. It helped me so much, and I don't even understand how can I design something without being a user of it. It's such a challenge. I understand that's like how most designers are probably designing, I don't know, some enterprise software or so on, but I really enjoy working on something that I use myself. It just gives me such a clear vision of what bothers me and like this motivation to change stuff because it bothers me personally. I think it's not only about being like English second language pattern. It's more about like I think there is a lot of research papers that are still undiscovered in tech world of how people communicate between each other. And some of the work that I've done, I was actually trying to post some threads on the Twitter about it, is analyzing every step of communication from when the idea sparks in my head to then laying it out in some UI, then sending it, and then another person receives it in some kind of UI of their choice, and then consumes it, and then understands it and kind of reflects on it. There are like 8 stages of communication that I found when it's regarding the user interface, and it's absolutely amazing how many like the processes back in our minds are happening. So we're assuming, oh, if for example, if the quality of the sound is better, people listen better and they respect and trust the speaker better rather than someone who doesn't have a better quality of audio, which is mind-boggling because how we are thinking about that, oh yes, the idea and words matter, the order of them or so on, but actually the medium through which the messaging is happening is important on the same level. And you might actually saw that sometimes on YouTube you find amazing kind of topic from new YouTuber or someone, and they have bad mic quality, and you instantly kind of don't want to invest more time to listen to them. So this is one of the examples of how one person wanted to translate the thoughts from their mind to the minds of other person, and they failed not because the idea was bad, but because the interface and the forming of it or around it was bad and was poor. So I think thinking about all of these limitations that might go wrong, the speed of the internet, the interface, the cracked screen of the receiver, so many stuff that can go wrong was fascinating to explore and think, okay, how would people communicate in 5 years' time? How people would communicate in 10 years' time if everything will keep expanding the same way? If we're going, I don't know, to generate text, will other people read generated text, or they will use a summarizer of text that would just analyze and give them the 2 main points? And if it happening, why people just can send the 2 points and not play this kind of theater of polite messages and so on? So there's different dynamics between people speaking with their family and partner and speaking with their work colleague or their managers, as we told, right? As with that example of email. If I'm writing something to my manager, it's going to be different styling of message rather than to my family, but we're using the same keyboard, which is weird. Like it's not weird, but if you think about this, you are like bringing to the whole another game the same tool that you were using in other space. So you're tweaking your mind perception about the communication of this particular interaction. So yeah, I'm sorry to getting too fanatical about this. I can talk about it forever.
No, I'm 100% on board about this idea of the multifaceted communication and how maybe some things, even like body language and also media, is so we're underrating it 100%. And it's challenging. And talking about challenges with all the different features you designed for Grammarly, do you remember which one was maybe the most troublesome, or which gave you the biggest satisfaction?
Well, I think working with keyboard is all of it. It's like you don't have any competitors you can copy from. You don't have many designers who are working on it from. You cannot copy their kind of knowledge. You basically have to invent on behalf of real estate happening on top of other apps. You have to deal with the memory limitations of the platform, because this is kind of extension that they limit access to the full memory usage of the device. There are so many things about it that is challenging and exciting at the same time. I think it was very, like, keyboard idea was before me. Like the past product manager before I came to company did it, like invented it in a way. But my job was to make more, like implement more Grammarly intelligence features inside. But it's such a nice concept of having assistant-like apps or services where you write or where you work. I even had this kind of exercise when I'm thinking, oh, should we make a suggestion here more aggressive or less aggressive? I try to imagine Grammarly as a real life assistant, like a human who comes in and kind of advises you to change something. And if their interaction with you seems a little bit too much, I'm trying to make it less aggressive. If it's not enough, I'm trying to make it more aggressive, because this is the assistant you're relying on. So I think there is a big future, which is not happening right now, is in creating cross-functional, cross-platform, cross-app apps that are happening anywhere you write. Right now, the closest possibly medium to this is extensions in browser, right? Because they work in every website, they can be triggered, they can change the content, but basically that's how all of the software should be intertwined between each other. It's hard to do technically right now, because platforms are also trying to defend themselves by closing the system instead of like letting everyone play with the content around. But even this kind of closes, I don't know if we will reach this point, but I think eventually platforms should be and will be more intertwined between each other. Like you will have more depth and more integrations from between the apps in a more sense, like extensions are doing to browsers. I think there are not enough extensions right now. I think there is not enough extensions that are, for example, system-wide or cross, like app-wide. For example, if you're using the, I don't know, some Telegram as your chat messenger or Twitter, you should be able to quickly jump to their LinkedIn or something like you. It should be all cross-pollinated software, while right now it's very like you're visiting this domain or you're opening this app. And the best thing you can do is just open them like side by side. That's the best collaboration we have. And this is wrong in in my head. I think it could be better if we would invent something more like ambient assistance type of working of the apps and software.
Yeah, again, talking about mobile, were you actually tasked with defining the strategy for mobile growth at Grammarly, or they already had an idea and you were brought in to implement it?
I think it's a constant challenge. So I was just contributing to it from with the product manager that we were working on. I think like strategy it's not a document in Google Docs, which is just finalized and no one can touch it, right? It's more like the sense of the team and of the organization, so where we're heading, why and how. And I think we're there's still a lot of works into understanding of what kind of pillars are the most important and how to not only de-risk some of this stuff, for example, I don't know, competitors and so on, but also where we can risk and take some bets in the future and why should we do it? Because the whole medium is changing, the whole industry is changing. So I think even like when I speak about design strategy, not even product strategy, but kind of design strategy, it should be very personalized, and there is no one brief that you can just feel it out from the beginning to the end, and it will be your strategy for the team. That's it. It's like defining, this kind of mission, vision, and goal or something like this. It's not that easy. Like everyone should believe in it inside of our organization. Everyone should move towards it. Everyone should bring new ideas to it, and everyone should always challenge it during the time of working on it. So the good strategy is something that kind of is resilient to many new ideas in some way. So for example, whenever someone comes and says like, oh yeah, I have new idea about how we can change this strategy, the strategy should basically answer you, no, probably we're not going to do this because we already have this and these bets in mind, and they're going to lead to a better results if we don't focus on this new idea. So basically strategy is more like a shield like in front of new ideas rather than an inspiration for them or like enabler for a team in a way. So I think there are different ways of doing this from the design point of view, but design is one of the ways how can you look into the future in terms of concepts, in terms of research, in terms of kind of cross organizational communication and so on. And design is one of the tools that can be kind of like almost magical forecasting into the future, like a magic purple ball where you can see how the future looks like. And if everyone really wants to work to this future, or the future doesn't look like something we want to build.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept, the strategy is a shield in front of new ideas, because yeah, new ideas can like quickly derail the whole process and the goals of organization. But that was like interesting. If I go back one more question back, like you were talking that like we should have more extensions and apps that would work simultaneously. So you could just like go in one app and like kind of have different extensions of other apps inside. Do you think like people would abandon, like right now you have to go, I don't know, like you said, you open LinkedIn, you don't want to use LinkedIn anymore, you have to close it and go to Telegram and etc. Do you think people would abandon all those different apps and just use one instead?
I think it's not for people to decide in some way. I think people like, again, I don't think these platforms that are like the most major platforms right now are really like user-centric in a way, like, oh yeah, they're listening and they're waiting for people to make a choice. It's more like you can influence and predict people's choice based on what have you done, right? I think like it shouldn't be like abandonment from people like that, oh no, I will stop using this app. It's more like, oh, this new app is like better, or this form of working is better, and that's why kind of I didn't even notice how I abandoned the old way of working. So it happens, I'm sorry, it happens usually more fluidly by how people perceive what's important for them at that time. I think like people don't abandon anything on purpose. They don't make a choice in the point. They just start, like suddenly they start using this app a little bit more, few minutes more every day, few minutes more. And then while they see that on the screen time, they use TikTok like for 3 hours last day, and somehow they like TikTok win in this very silently, because people didn't say, oh no, I've stopped using Instagram right now, or I stopped using this old social network. No, they just were starting to use a little bit more minutes in this new approach because it made more sense. And I think like when I think about competitors, I'm not afraid of someone like winning quickly or getting new features or making some like, I don't know, suddenly like improving something so much that it would like, that it would break the relationship between the company and the user. I'm more afraid about, for example, someone iterating quickly, producing new value, producing new quality results, because that's how like people are getting stolen in terms of users, right? That's how people are getting stolen, because suddenly like another tool is providing slightly better approach in some ways, and it just satisfies people more.
Yeah, I think in China, do you know I think WeChat is the app in China?
Yeah.
There's isn't this like WeChat is kind of like the app that you can do everything inside this app, like buy plane tickets, chat with friends, use their own version of Amazon and stuff like that. Do you think that could be translated to here to the Western world when we have all those bunch of different apps and products?
I think many people try, many organizations try, and they fail. I feel like let's be honest, Facebook and Amazon are still trying to be that kind of app. and they still kind of fail. I think because I think the biggest difference is that I'm not sure who to blame here, but I just state the fact that we and Western product managers somehow don't see the point, like the final point of what should happen. Like if it's one app, then what? Like then we can call ourselves super app and that's it, and that's the final game. Then we're successful. Then we stop like developer, or like what's the end game? What's the end game here? I think in some way it's good that we don't have like one app that rules it all. And I feel like it's like when I say about this cross-pollinated software that works with each other, it should promote people like against of this thinking, against of capitalizing on monopoly, and more like opening some platforms for more opportunities there. Of course, there are, for example, some more threats to it, right? Because if you're opening, you have more open platform, more people can do malicious things, and this is what's also stopping. But again, we're at this age where we're feeling very confident about the software right now. I feel like there are so many like thoughts and opinions right now about it, but usually it's the best way to change something, because people just don't believe that something new can be happening behind the curtains. So I don't know, but I doubt we will have something like this.
Yeah, I also kind of doubt that like here in the West, something like WeChat could happen anytime soon. But going forward, you're also a co-founder at Commit Club, right? And can you tell our listener what it is and why you approached building it?
So I'm very kind of, I don't know, part-time co-founder of the very small equity. The whole point is just I met in Kiev one American boy, one German boy, and we met, and it turns out we all love productivity tools, and they were fans of Web3 technologies. So something that was stuck in my mind is to build something like, how can we leverage the blockchain technology in non-obvious way? So we've tried to make this kind of habit building app, something that all kind of, I don't know, designers do for their just, oh, I designed you to-do app, or I designed, like I made this to-do app for myself. We tried to make something like this, but try to multiply it by blockchain technology. So what we've done is, if people are getting successful, they're getting the part of the stake of people who are not successful. And because we have this blockchain allows you to have this fully transparent flows of the transactions, you can basically see this transparent kind of transactions between efficient people and people who fail on their accountability journey. Of course, it's very subjective right now. We don't have like this connected API that would track your heartbeat if you, like, I don't know, failed some challenge or not. For example, if you ran or something, we're planning to do that. And I just came as a design kind of, I don't know how to call it, design product partner who would just design the whole kind of flow, the whole system, because I wanted to have like this side project and these new technologies back then. We're trying different marketing techniques right now, but it's not my main project right now. I think Edward, who is like another co-founder, and Leon, who is another co-founder, are making way more improvements there than I do.
Yeah, and how did you came up with this idea, and how did you go from just the idea to the product? Like, what was the process behind it?
I knew that I don't know a lot, and I knew that in order to tap into Web3 technology, the biggest challenge would be not the idea itself, but the adoption of the Web3. So like the adoption of the Web3, the biggest blocker for this project. So people are still kind of used to regular money. So we can only tap into people who already know how to connect a wallet and so on. So to be honest, I was more interested into understanding the industry rather than getting commercial results from it. Commercial result would be a great outcome, not the output. Output for me would be, I would design a startup from 0 to 1 and see what we can do with it. How can we market it? How can I meet more people? And partly, like, I met a lot of people in crypto in London, and I'm not a big believer in crypto, by the way. I don't own a lot, and I generally very skeptical. But I really love the passion of some developers in this field, and I feel like they're trying to push the boundaries where it's already been very conservative for many years. And this pushing the boundaries mindset is something that is appealing to me way more than, I don't know, any of the hyping technologies or ways or products that is happening in this space. So the people who are trying to push the boundaries and reinvent some of this stuff and try to make some new ideas out of it, that's the most inspiring. And I met maybe 40 founders in London just solely because I was in this project. So it basically was a networking enabler for me.
Yeah, I mean, believe it, like if you're a believer or not, I mean, anyways, it's such a complex and creative industry. And like you said, it's full of big believers and people that are like so committed in crypto. And yeah, a lot of amazing and really smart people in the industry. And yeah, as we talked in the beginning about the product validation, did you do a validation or you just went ahead and built it?
Just went ahead and built it. With validation, it's quite hard. We know that some of the products exist. We know they had success. We knew that the productivity in general is a very subjective stuff. So for example, there are sometimes products that solves one thing and you can clearly measure that you're getting more effective with it. I don't know, faster server can give you faster results in terms of that, or you are buying a new camera, more megapixels, you can crop your video more, right? In productivity type of products, it's actually one of the most subjective things because the only how to properly formulate it. People apply their own scale of productivity to the products, and they don't necessarily, it's not a linear scale like, oh yeah, I'm getting 2% more productive that day. Sometimes people having rest or they just feeling better and they feel more productive, or they are feeling that they are more committed to this thing, for example, to one of their goals, and that's why they're more productive, but not because they were actually more productive as a person, as a like new camera with more megapixels or better sensor. So I think it was more like validated by my internal belief that productivity software is here with us for a long time. If we start investing it early, if we start investing it with new technologies like Web3, we might pivot later into something that the market will see more sense in. So again, it's more like a bet that I was ready to take part of my time into and invest my time into it, and I'm actually very happy to.
All right, we know you're a busy man, and just before we get to this last segment of the podcast, we can't go without mentioning Decipet, that was just very successful in your seed round. You're a super designer there. What does that mean? What's the pitch for the Decipet, and what are the plans for the future?
Yeah, so I don't know. I still don't know my role at Decipet. It's kind of hard, but basically, I want to bring Decipet to success through the growth or through the design, and to understand how can we market this product in the best way possible. So the pitch for Decipet is we love spreadsheets. Like everyone in the teams loves how you go, like, for example, the sheets.new, and you open Google Sheets and you are trying to pay some thinking, you do some thinking about it. You can calculate anything. You can calculate your personal finance. You can calculate, I don't know, team attendance. You can calculate the financial models, the sales, I don't know, commissions and so on. The problem with this is that it's so comfortable to think inside of it that it becomes really hard to share to someone. So before you're sharing it to someone, you have to rearrange stuff. You have to color some of the headings. You need to record a Loom video, which explains how to work with this model. You have to freeze some columns because otherwise people will change something and you will have this kind of hashtag RAF 0 like errors throughout the notebook. It will break a lot of stuff. Our pitch is that we want to make the same way of thinking with numbers tool, which allows you to kind of think about the recipes, think about the kind of electric cars, about the climate change, about the financial models, about starting a candle business, about anything. But in the end, instead of getting the messy spreadsheet, you will get a fantastically, beautifully written story in a linear format, which is very comfortable to read because of the widgets, because of the stuff. And the most exciting part here is that if you saw some of the talks of Brett Victor of his work, where he would be able to drag the numbers and the whole story would change based on this, this is exactly what we're trying to use. And for example, if reader comes to your notebook, they can actually change something in these specific areas, for example, widgets, where you could change, for example, the amount of money that you're raising for an investor, and therefore the cap table of the ownership of the company changes based on this, and so on and so on. So I think the biggest challenge is to break 40 years old pattern of the spreadsheets and see how can people still think with numbers more efficiently, as free as they do with spreadsheets. And again, we'll love them. We don't want to bash them and say like, oh, spreadsheets are very bad, we're a competitor for them. We're more competitors to maybe PowerPoint, but the input is still numbers into the text. So one of the things that I'm trying to kind of pitch, and when I was kind of talking with founders, something that I feel is a big promise here is when the internet arrived, the biggest revolution from the book was links, right? You can use links to teleport to another form of information. Imagine you're a library and you can teleport to another book, to another page, to specifically learn something from different contexts, right? The link revolutionized internet. But if you write, for example, google.com, and it's not underlined, it's not blue, it's just in text, it's super weird that you can click on it. You just can't. You have to copy it and paste it. And so it's just like weird to not have every link blue and underlined as by default, right? But whenever we speak about the numbers, it's somehow normal to have them as a static text, like, oh yeah, I would raise 43 millions, and that's it. And that's the end of the story. Ideally, numbers, in my idea of the future of the internet, they all should be underlined. They all should have historical data. They all should be collaboratively challenged. They all should have a forecast. They all should be connected to some live data or some reason of why you chose it. And you also have to be able to reuse it. So whenever you have a story, you might change some text in one place, the whole story changes accommodating to it. It's not an easy challenge. It's a very high risk product, I would say, because it should change a lot of stuff. So the higher risk, the higher reward. But I still think that whenever I sent out so many Slack messages and emails where I try to explain the spreadsheets, or I try to say, oh yeah, like this is my calculation of acquisition costs and like the lifetime value of our product. But if you change it like to this one, it will change the whole model. Instead of all of this, I just send a nice story that is evergreen, that anyone can update, then anyone can contribute to, then anyone can fork and create their own story with these reusable number blocks instead of them just being a text. I had actually, it's funny thing, again, several years before that, I actually made this kind of concepts for my personal kind of dribble, where I created this kind of messages inside of the chat where you could drag numbers and people would be able to read, not to share the thought, but share the thinking. It's a different thing. Thought is static. Thinking is like people can understand why you came up with these conclusions, which is very, on a one level deeper or more higher. I don't know how to say it, but you get the idea, right? People are getting how you think and how you are getting to this particular insights. So the promise of Deciped is to challenge this whole flow of thinking, working, and sharing, collaborating on numbers, and like making the best interface for it. And yeah, we're basically inventing from the zero. We're taking like text editor, and we're really trying to change how every like adding words, adding blocks works.
Yeah, it's an interesting vision, and we will follow it closely, especially because in this low-code sphere that we're into. Before we finish, I want to ask you, do you maybe remember the best advice you've ever heard, and how did you implement it?
The best advice is to always create your game. I think it applies to personal growth and to product growth, like playing in others' markets or in others kind of others' games usually lead to losing in them, unless you would apply so many kind of, I don't know, investments to outplay them. But creating your game allows you to create your own values, to create your own goals, and to win in it, which is far more rewarding and far more, I don't know, impactful to the world, I guess. So this is I'm constantly trying to understand if I'm influenced by others' game, if I want to buy this because someone recommended it or someone is having it, or because I really want to buy it. If I'm working on this product, do I work on it because it's cool for others, or it's because it's cool for me and I see the new future with it? And challenge everything like as your own game is way better.
For sure, that's such a valuable insight. Before we let you go, we have a series of 5 rapid fire questions, if you're ready.
Yep.
All right. What's your favorite book?
I think any of the Jules Verne's books.
Nice, I like that. Your favorite podcast?
I think it's called MetaMuse. It's by Ink and Switch company.
All right. Favorite productivity tool?
Pen and paper.
That's your most used app on the phone?
I have to see, but I think it's either Twitter or Pokemon Go. Still big fan of this.
Great. And your favorite hobby?
Photography and I don't know, just sketching, really, like wondering about the future on the piece of paper is one of the best things. I don't know if it counts as hobby, but it really drives me super to the happiness very fast.
Perfect. A nice thought to finish this podcast. Alexander, thank you for being with us today. All the best, and hope to chat with you again in the future.
Thank you for inviting me.